What's up guys, it's me B, and we are back with Halo Infinite's Ask 343. I cannot wait to get into this episode, but just as a little bit of a heads up, I'm going to be making a second video which should be out before this one. This is going to be a shorter version where I'm basically going to be looking at the main questions, the main answers, and basically putting it into a very quick video to give you guys the answers, because that's the most important one. If you want to be listening to this full one, we're going to be going through all the questions which were asked and basically simplifying the answers, because I think that's the best way to do it. 343 Industries tend to waffle on. I'm going to try and make it even shorter than last time. Then keep watching, but if you don't, up in the top you should be able to see that will give you a simplified version. Without further ado, let's get into Ask 343 episode 2. So let's get right into it. The first question is, the dynamic day/night cycles look fantastic. Can we also expect some degree of dynamic weather? The answer is yes, but not what you might expect. They will have wind and fog, which will affect the way which the game actually plays, because obviously fog will mean that you can't see enemies and wind might affect the way the grenades work. They haven't actually implemented storms, so there's not going to be any rain or lightning. However, they did add that this is just for launch, so they might actually plan to add a few storms as the game goes on. This is very interesting and I cannot wait to see what they do with this. The next question is, the day/night cycle in Infinite looks and sounds amazing. Is time of day going to affect how enemies respond to your presence, or change types/groups/numbers of enemies depending on what time it is? And the answer for that is yes, there are going to be more phantoms patrolling about, there's going to be more sleeping grunts, and it's basically meant to add to the feel that you're patrolling around at night, sneaking around. They didn't really mention anything to do with stealth and whether you'd be more difficult to see. However, they did mention having more nighttime enemies like jackals with shields because that looks cooler, and more fusion coils because they glow in the dark. The next question is, wildlife was confirmed in the last Inside Infinite update. What kinds of wildlife can we expect to see? Will all the wildlife be friendly, or will there be some that are hostile to the player and enemies? So the answer for this is there will be wildlife, but there's going to be none which will actually attack the players, because they wanted to focus more on the life and not actually have any ring fighting against the player, which seems a little bit strange. However, what they have also said is that there's going to be things like birds and space gophers. Birds will basically appear above something if something's going on, so if there's an event, birds will be spawning above it. Also, they have got different animals which come out depending on whether it's day or night, so there is a day-night cycle for the animals. So moving on from that, the next question is there a plan to bring back dual wielding in Halo Infinite? Unfortunately, the answer for this is no. No dual wielding, because they want to focus on other things like the weapons and the grenades and the equipment and how that all plays. The next question is incredibly important to me. Will there be playable elites in Halo Infinite? Whilst I cannot believe that this is the answer is no. There's not going to be any playable elites. It is a terrible misstep in my opinion. Their reasoning for doing it is that they want to make it more focused on Spartans. It's the Master Chief story and it's going to be a Spartan story. It's not going to be about the elites. So yeah, no playable elites. The chat went mad. The live chat who's reacting to this went absolutely mad. They was all screaming no. Terrible misstep for 343 Industries. Really not understanding what the community wants on that. I thought it was something which they confirmed there would be elites in there, and just the way that they try and dodge the question and say that it's about a Spartan story and say for competitive reasons they won't add elites. They could just disable elites when it comes down to competitive game modes, but obviously no elites unfortunately, so that's really going to affect the community and cause quite a big split with the Sankiri community. Very unfortunate. So the next question is, will there be weapon upgrades in the campaign? The answer to this is no, but 343 didn't really give the best answer on this. What they've basically said is you can't customize weapons because you would have to have different slots or more slots to hold those weapons, which makes me think you can hold more than 2 weapons now. But you can find special weapons on the map which are different variants, but we don't know what they mean by variants, whether they're just a different skin or they actually work completely different like they did with the Halo 5 Rex. You can also, as you progress through the game, get more equipment and then you can upgrade the capabilities of those equipment. The next question is, y'all mentioned being able to hold multiple pieces of equipment in campaign. Does this ability also appear in multiplayer, or is that strictly for campaign? I reckon I could have answered this question without having to listen to what they said, but of course you have to find it around the map. You don't start with these equipment pieces, you find it around the map. It's like Halo 3, just stop being silly. The only thing which they said which was pretty interesting was that you could probably make it so in custom games you start with an equipment piece. They're thinking about implementing that. Next question, is the game going to be open world or semi-open world? So the answer to this is actually kind of complex. They've basically said that they want to try and make all the missions like the Silent Cartographer in Halo 1. And what they mean by that is they want to give you the ability to approach a mission how you want to. So there's still that mission, there's still that objective that you need to get to. They basically said if you want to go down the road in a tank and attack from the front, you could do that, or you could get the tank and drive around the base and hit them from the side and take out a Wraith, which they didn't even realise he was there. Sneak attack them basically. They've said that there's multiple ways to approach the situation, so if you want to be going in guns blazing you can, but if you want to pick them off from afar you can as well. They also mentioned Meridian from Halo 5, and they said there was one part where you had a tank, and they said what would happen if you just was able to keep that tank, you know, not just get rid of it afterwards. You could continue using that in the next mission how you wanted to. The unfortunate side of this, I think everyone's just going to be using Banshees and Banshee bombing everyone or using the tank throughout the entire game. So cool. But it gives us that player freedom to do what we want until that tank gets destroyed or whatever we want to do as players. So I think that's pretty cool to see, but it's going to be interesting to see how it works out. The next question is, I know that exploration is a major focus of Infinite, but what I'm curious about is biomes. What sort of environments, if any, can we expect on Zeta Halo, aside from the Pacific Northwest inspired landscapes we've seen so far? The answer to that is no, but they will have sub-biomes inside the biomes, so that could be a marsh, or that could be foreigner architecture, or it could be a banished building. Basically they're going to be spicing things up with different areas which are still in the Pacific Northwest area, but just kind of a little bit different. They don't want to make it so that there's really bad meshing for biomes, so that's what they've done. And there's also going to be caves as well, which are meant to be quite dark and moody. That's how they described it. Next question is, I'm curious about how or if the hexagon pillars have changed. I don't know if I missed them, but didn't see them in the new screenshots. The answer is yes, they're still there, and they've also worked on them to make them look better. Now the next question is actually quite important. You touched on it some, but how will missions and other objectives be separated from each other in a more connected world? What is stopping me from grabbing a Banshee and flying it to the objective 3 missions ahead in the story? The answer to this one is a little bit complicated, but they've basically said nothing is there to stop you. It's going to be kind of difficult for you to just go and skip ahead, but at the same time the game's designed for you to kind of get distracted. You could be dropped off from Pelican as they described, and you could be about to go to the mission, but you could see down the road that there's a UNSC FOB, as they called it, Forward Operation Base, which is in trouble. It's been overrun by Banish, so you've got to run over there and help them, or you could go to the main mission. You've got that choice. But then you can also see some green smoke, which signifies Marines are under attack by Banished and they need help. So you've got those choices to decide where you want to go. You might go to the Forward Operations Base and get a vehicle and change up your loadout, which means loadouts are going to be a thing in Halo Infinite. That's something which they did reveal. But there's all different things you could do. You might see a foreigner structure, as they said, and you might want to go over there and explore it. The choice is up to you as a player, but nothing's stopping you from skipping ahead. Really, you should just be able to play more naturally and enjoy it at the rate which you want to do it. So decent answer, but a little bit complicated. The next question is, with Zeta Halo being a major character, will there be ways to find story elements within the world beyond the Golden Path? The answer to this, while Zeta Halo isn't a character, like Master Chief is a character, Sergeant Johnson's a character, the Zeta Halo ring is a location. But anyway, the answer to this is yes, of course. There's going to be different things that you can find, like a Crash Pelican for example, and inside the Crash Pelican you can find an audio log. So audio logs are confirmed, but you can basically find these different landmarks with audio logs inside, which will tell the story even further. The next question is the ring in the skybox a fully rendered 3D model? If so, why did you decide to make a 3D model instead of just painting a skybox? It looks beautiful, by the way. So the answer to that is yes, it is a 3D model, and the reason for that is because they wanted to make it so whilst you was going around the ring, you can actually see the different areas of it from the different angles. They also said that there was a gameplay island, so it looks like you're not going to be able to explore the entire ring, it's just an island that's cut off, which is interesting but good to know. And they also said that there's parts where the sun goes round, and there's actually a eclipse, a very brief eclipse at one point, where the sun goes behind part of the ring. Very interesting to see. I cannot wait to actually experience that. Also, rather strangely, they referred to Zeta Halo as a character. So, okay, 343, well, you do you. The next question is, how will the day/night cycles work with cutscenes? Will they also be integrated into them, or will they always be in a predetermined time? So the answer to this is that yes, the times will actually affect the cutscenes. The cutscenes are done live in the actual game, so basically depending on what weapons you're holding and what time of day it is will affect the cutscene. I want to see this affected with a chain gun to it for an example. So if you're holding a chain gun to it, how does that affect the cutscene? Maybe you're going to just be merged in with it, because that's what happens in games like Halo 5. So it's going to be really interesting to see that. But yeah, weapons and time affects cutscenes. The next question is, what techniques does the team implement to really bring out the scale of the world of Zeta Halo, emphasis on certain elements, etc.? So this question was more interesting than I first thought it would be. So the answer to this is they basically use things like grass and trees to add scale to it. So you know how big grass is, you know how big a tree is roughly. So when you see these things compared to a sci-fi megastructure, as they called it, like a Forerunner building, you know how big these megastructures are because you can compare it to things which you can actively see. And if the game is done right, like the saying it is, you won't actually notice it. You'll just see things like grass and be like, oh, look at this, look at these rocks, I know how big these are. Wow, look at this compared to this megastructure. This structure is absolutely enormous. And that's kind of how you're meant to really understand it. Yeah, it's an interesting question, but it's good to see. Good answers. Next question is, what's the design philosophy for the Banished in Halo Infinite? What colours, styles and goals go into banishing a hallway, weapon, vehicle or structure? So we have actually seen the Banished in Halo Wars 2, but the answer to this of what they gave was Banished are going to be very red, very heavy. Heavy metal is how they described it. They said that things like the Banshee and the Wraith have so much armor plating on it. They also said that a lot of the buildings are just dropped from orbit and stick into the ground for the Banished. So there's quite a decent contrast from the Banished to the actual world around it. They don't care about the beauty, they just want to conquer. So this is going to be really interesting to look at. But we've kind of seen it in Halo Wars 2, so we know what to expect. They didn't mention there's going to be quite a few spikes though, so heavy metal, spiky and red. That's the best way to describe it. The next question is, in Halo Infinite, will we be able to knock things off the edge of Zeta Halo? Asking for a friend, ... So the answer to this is yes, you can push things off, you can push people off if you want to, you can push enemies off, or you can fall off yourself and then you will fall into the abyss of space. The next question is, how much of the improvements to visual quality do you attribute as a response to the Dual Wield versus just having more time to improve and tweak the game? The answer to this is yes, because of the gameplay trailer which was last year. Players have pointed out things which they said they should improve, and 343 Industries agreed and have improved them. So yeah, cool. That's basically the answer. They have improved some of the things, they have tweaked things based on what we saw back last year with the gameplay trailer. The next question is, will all the events in the game be created in advance, like outposts and missions, or will there be random encounters like unscripted patrols that will look for Chief? So the answer to this is that the Banished have already set up their presence on Zeta Halo, so there will be bases which are already there. However, as for random encounters, there will be those, and they'll actually be based on something quite interesting. So if you're in a Banshee, for an example, or any flying vehicle, the game will pick out a random encounter which will be better for you because you're in a flying vehicle. It's not set there to punish you for being in a flying vehicle, it's meant to be there for you to have more of a fun time because that's better suited for a Banshee. Same if you were in a Warthog, for an example, it would give you something which a Warthog could handle and allow you to use that, so still going to be fun. If you're on foot, you'll have a random encounter for being on foot, or if you're in a tank, you'll have a random encounter for you being in a tank. Essentially, these random encounters are designed around the vehicles and the play that you're doing at the moment. Because it'd be pretty boring if you're in a flying vehicle and you're getting land troops to be able to take out as a random event, and it's like, well, I'm going to fly over them, not even going to see them. Very interesting to see, and good. That's a really good thing to be able to do. They also mentioned that the Wasp could be a vehicle, so the Wasp has been confirmed. I know that we saw it in art, but now the Wasp is 100% confirmed in Infinite. And the final question is, are you guys having fun making the game? So the answer to this is yes, they are having fun, but it's very hard work. I'm not too sure why little Timmy asked this question, it's a very basic one, but I suppose the only takeaway is they're having fun making the game, so as a consequence of that, we should have fun playing it. And that's it, that's all the questions. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I'm actually going to be making a video straight after this, which should already be out. It's going to be a very short and brief version of it, so maybe you came from that video to watch this one. I hope you enjoyed, thank you for the support on the channel. And yeah, 343 Industries, we just took a 44-minute video of yours and compressed it into 14 minutes. You need to get better at that. Thanks for watching guys, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace out.